Hello and welcome back to Community Conversations with the UI Cancer Center. I'm Chris Gay. Community Conversations is a weekly show hosted by the Cancer Center where we highlight our different interventions, programs, our community partners, and our different UI health partners. This week our guest is Nyasha Nyamafene from the Gospel Run. She'll be talking to us today about the Gospel Run and about practicing a healthy lifestyle. Our goal through the community conversations is to disseminate education pertaining to health and cancer, but also to, of course, highlight our community partners. So thank you for joining us, Nyasha.
Thank you for having me.
So to start the show, I'll actually play a video sort of introducing the Gospel Run and Nyasha.
Do we have sound?
Yeah.
It's, yeah. There you go.
Here we go.
Open the windows of heaven, pour out a blessing, overflow, turn it around. Open the windows of heaven, pour out a blessing, we can let it come
The Gospel Run urges people who have never run before to come out for the first time and compete and run and see what they can do. Yes, we want people to be fit, we want to have fun and fellowship.
Ultimate goal is to stay healthy and stay together as a family. So those two things, it was great.
Dealing with diseases like diabetes, stroke, high blood pressure, heart attacks. We have to do better. We have to make fitness a very important part of our community.
From the Gospel Run 5K, there is nothing like it.
I'm ready for change, Lord.
So the mission is be inspired. Whatever motivates you, whatever gets you off the couch, use that to get into health and fitness, to change your life, to change your family.
Pour out a blessing, overflow, turn it around. Open the windows of heaven, pour out a blessing, we can bring it back in time. Let it rain.
That's a lot of fun. So as you can see, that was a video of the Gospel Run. Was that the one from last year, a couple years ago, sort of a mix?
That's a compilation,
Okay,
actually, of the
got it,
past
got it.
3 years.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Well, I guess we can jump right into the conversation. Again, thank you for joining us, Nyasha. Before we dive into the, talking about the Gospel Run, can you give us a little bit about your background, how I guess you got involved with the Gospel Run?
Sure, absolutely. So I am the founder of Gospel Run. In terms of my background, I've been in Chicago about 20 years. Came to Chicago actually to go to graduate school. Moved to Hyde Park, attended the University of Chicago, did my master's in public policy and a master's in business as well, and just kind of stayed. Professionally, I've really spanned both community and corporate over my career. On the community side, I actually got my start in social services and youth development, and worked a lot in youth policy thereafter, and went on to work in education, K-12 education for over a decade, and still do work in that realm. And on the corporate side, I spent several years in investment banking, worked in private equity investing, as well as in the hedge fund industry for several years. So it's pretty diverse, which is fun. There's lots to draw from, that's for sure. I will say, pursuant to the Gospel Run, I know a little bit about your health story, and I'll share a little bit about mine too. Growing up in St. Louis, I would say the household that I grew up in had a lot to do with kind of what has now become Gospel Run. I grew up in a family of 6, 2 parents. I was the firstborn. I have 3 younger brothers. Now I have 2 that are living. And I'd say even though our family was not that large, we had every one of what I call the majors in our household. Cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, mental illness, addiction, emotional illness, kidney failure, and I may be forgetting some. So there was a lot happening. So health or health management was always something we were very conscious and emphatically focused on. And then stepping out into our neighborhood, there were a lot of dynamics that many neighborhoods in Chicago and throughout the country experience. The violence, the gangs, the drugs, as kind of the community norm among our friends, among our classmates, and so forth. And so I think moving forward, I started to realize that there was an actual health epidemic in the African community and in urban communities, more broadly speaking, and health equity, which is a big emphasis that we share with the Cancer Center, really was a driving force in creating the Gospel Run.
Fantastic. So I guess now, sort of getting into the Gospel Run, how long has it been going? I mean, it's an amazing sort of story behind it, and it's really inspiring, for to have that background and then start, really a movement at this point focused on health. So yeah, I guess give us a little bit of the background of the Gospel Run, how long it's been around, sort of the success up to this point, and maybe even just general some of its background.
Yeah, thank you. It is a movement, and that's certainly what it's become, in part driven by us, and in part because the community has embraced it so immediately and so strongly that it's in some ways taken on a life of its own, which tells us that maybe it's an idea whose time has come. So we did a pilot of the Gospel Run in 2013. We had about 300 people at the pilot event, and we partnered with the Chicago Gospel Music Festival, as well as the Chicago Department of Public Health. And really wanted to create an event that was fun, that was based in culture, rooted in faith, and focused on fellowship and support. Since that first year, we started to realize the race was doubling and tripling in size year over year. Many churches were making it a part of their annual calendar and a recurring tradition in their church families and their congregations. And we started to deepen our relationships with our partners, including the Cancer Center, which is one of our most important partners.
It's definitely something that's on our calendar every year.
Absolutely.
And just it is so much fun.
Please go on. Now, did you run this year?
Yeah, actually I did.
Good.
Well, run, but yes, I did. I was out there.
Yeah, and I think, for a lot of participants, it's something that really they feel resonates with them culturally as well as spiritually. It's a welcoming environment for people who are not connected to a health community prior to Gospel Run or prior to hearing about it through their church or through their friends or through their organizations, even through their workplace in some instances. This year we had at least 5 pastors who actually attended the Gospel Run and crossed the finish line with their congregations. So we think that just sends an incredibly powerful message of health and how we're creating a culture of health through our faith partnerships. So we had over 50 teams compete this year, which is almost twice as many as we had last year.
That's amazing.
And a number of those teams have already started to build toward 2017, and we're looking forward to welcoming even more teams as new partners next year.
Fantastic. Really, really great. I mean, it sort of brings out the conversation of the importance of an active lifestyle, but not just personally, but what you're building through Gospel Run, it seems, is this sort of community of, this health-focused lifestyle. And sort of begin that conversation, what do you think the community's role is in promoting a healthy lifestyle, and even seeing sort of the success of Gospel Run? What even maybe real stories of having seen some success stories, I guess. What do you think that role of the community in health? How do they play together?
So the community absolutely plays a critical role in health behaviors as well as health outcomes, and that can be for good or for bad, right? So part of the research base for our work is a framework called the SEM, the Social Ecological Model, and you can look at community, to your question about the role of community, really as an ecosystem that includes health centers like Mile Square, but it also includes churches, it includes schools, it includes families, it includes businesses, and all of these component parts within this ecosystem of a community contribute to health and contribute to health outcomes, as well as interpersonal relationships. And so in some communities where there are deficits, be they food deserts or in some instances what we call learning deserts, where there may be a lack of access to quality education, museums, cultural institutions, libraries, after-school options. Some communities that experience higher levels of trauma sometimes have to work harder to even pursue health because they have so many more risk factors that are manifesting in some of those negative physical outcomes. And so the community absolutely matters, and those components within that ecosystem in terms of the physical community. That said, we believe, and part of our model is also around creating community, as you've referenced, and creating, working with existing communities, often being churches, and creating community on top of that. So we've created a multi-church fitness and health fellowship that really reinforces itself. We, for example, each year do a 1 mile kickoff about 8 weeks before the race. This year we had 10 churches at that kickoff. And so you have this kind of meta community supporting each other from all parts of the region, really, from the city, from the suburbs, from the south, from the west, and from the north. And the power of that is profound. I mean, we've seen churches that are now, before Gospel Run, you asked about examples, hosting Zumba classes, pastors that are aggressively and actively on social media, on their spin cycles. Many of our partner pastors are in the pulpit talking about running and walking and participating in the Gospel Run, not just as something that the running club at the church will do, but as something that the entire congregation is being asked to do. And leveraging that community to give that health messaging is just profoundly impactful.
Fantastic. And I do have sort of another point about, faith communities and how they, interact with health. But I think we had a caller. Caller, can you hear us?
Yes. Hey, how are you?
We're good. How are you doing, caller?
Good. My name's James, and I wanted to call in. I had a chance to participate in the Gospel Run last year. It was absolutely fascinating to see the demographic draw and so many folks particularly from the faith community, getting actively involved, and faith leaders that participated. It's very inspiring work. I work in public health myself. I've been working in public health for 15 years. My question is, for faith leaders or health leaders who are maybe listening to the great work that you're doing, Nyasha, and want to get involved, what would be the best way for them to connect with you and the work that you're doing?
So great question, and a timely question also. And I also want to say thank you for having Gospel Run as the closeout to your season.
Yeah, of course.
Just in time, because we're about to kick off our Teams Invitational for Gospel Run 2017. And so for organizations, churches, health organizations, even employee teams, fraternities, sororities, we have all types of organizations that form teams for Gospel Run. I would email us at teams@gospelrun.com or at info@gospelrun.com. As within the next several weeks, we will be launching our Teams Invitational. And we want to get you involved and help you identify your leadership that will work with us in promoting health and faith and fitness in your community, and starting to build that team for Gospel Run 2017.
Yeah, thank you, Colin.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and just as a big fan of yours and folks that are listening, just encouraging folks to get involved, because the energy and the spirit is alive at the run, and I think it's actually saving lives and putting people on a healthier track. So thanks for taking my call.
Yeah,
thank you. And you were talking about, and James, who just, I think, disconnected. I was talking about saving lives.
Yeah. 100%.
And so I think one of the most powerful things that we've heard over the years are people who have told us that they've lost copious amounts of weight, started a walking regimen for the first time, because walkers constitute about half of our participants. And for first-timers, that's a really important entry point for them, as well as people who have changed what they do in the kitchen, very importantly. And then, you know, people who have honestly just changed their attitude and relationship towards and with their own health and with fitness, going from just a complete lack of interest at all in health and fitness to almost an addictive connection to health and fitness now. So some of those are just the most powerful stories, and hopefully those will create a multiplier effect with their friends, their families that are watching them go through that journey.
And it makes me think, I mean, Gospel Run is an amazing example of what we like to talk about at the Cancer Center is sort of the and conversation, that, you know, having an active mindset, a health-focused mindset starts a conversation on other things like, you know, being healthier when concerning disease, concerning cancer, and just opening the conversation for, you know, how do I keep myself healthy? And, you know, and it's an amazing place to start just, you know, walking at, you know, a 5K. You know, it's that first step towards thinking about, you know, being healthy, about your own personal health, your health journey. Something I wrote down that, you know, we were saying before about the sort of all the spheres that Gospel Run hits and how people think is the social determinants of health, which is something that has been a sort of through line through a number of our shows. Is that, you know, health is something that concerns many aspects of our lives, but it's not something that we necessarily always control. You know, there's a lot of aspects in our life concerning communities with trauma, with food deserts, with, you know, that directly affect your health, whether you have a hand in it or not. That then being able to take control of it through something like Gospel Run, through other, you know, health activities, through just being more aware of your well-being and your health is really amazing. And I agree with James in that any sort of push in that direction is saving lives, and is, you know, truly inspiring, you know, what you guys are doing.
And you mentioned walking in particular, and fear. Because honestly, still, some people see the words Gospel Run and they immediately want to run away, pun intended. And we always have that conversation around the ability to walk, and that can really be an entry point for a conversation that gives them access to a completely new community focused around health. And once they get in there and make the decision, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to walk it and see what happens. And they get that time. They have that experience of pushing past a boundary, a mental boundary, and a perceived physical boundary, and achieving the goal that they've set for themselves. And they automatically start to think about what's next. And that automatically starts to transfer into other aspects of their lives. And so some of those factors outside of our control are our family members. And we're hoping that those people are going back to those families and having different types of conversations.
And something else I want to highlight, sort of what I wanted to bring up earlier, is putting it on the frame of, and what I think is really cool, the faith community already, which is an amazing supportive network sort of already in our communities, and then adding an element of health to it, an element of, you know, even competition, which is like cool and pushes you.
Competition is a good thing.
Exactly. And even thinking about, you know, you don't always see, especially 5Ks framed around, we'll help you train, we'll help you reach that goal. Goal-oriented health as well is very important. But even talking about sort of that, you know, conversation about, and education that happens once one member of the community has become healthy or has gone through a health journey. Thinking about sort of, you know, survivorship, which is something that we've talked about a lot, and specifically with cancer and health. I was wondering what your idea is, especially thinking about like the impact that someone who has now going through that health journey of, you know, I can make myself, you know, better through my own actions and taking reins of my own health, and even, you know, thinking about survivorship in that same way of someone has gone through a health journey in their own way, through cancer, through other diseases. What do you think the impact of someone in a community is, or the impact it can have, or something you've seen?
So, you know, being a faith-based organization, a lot of what drives us is and a lot of what drives our outcomes are what you believe.
Right.
You can think of faith as really just what do you believe. And so for someone to cross that finish line for the first time, or for someone to move into the realm of a survivor, oftentimes it can push you to expand what's possible for you, and start to believe in possibilities that maybe before you had. And even in getting to the point of being a survivor, there's a certain level of belief that helps you get there, and a certain level of faith that helps you believe that you can be cured and become a survivor. And so I think the role of faith as it relates to health is absolutely critical. Do you believe that, so another research framework that feeds into our model is called the health belief model. And it really posits that health behaviors are driven by what you believe. Do you believe that your actions can bring about change? Do you believe that something's possible for you beyond what you see in your home or in your body, on your medical report? Or in your neighborhood and community. And if you, depending on what you believe, that will determine the actions that you take to move forward. And so being in a health community where faith is already the foundation, there's so much that you can use to leverage those beliefs to build toward application and transformation. And so that's really what we're all about in fostering
And
that.
even thinking about, I talked to so many people at the Gospel Run who are inspiring because they took it upon themselves to be the agents of change within their, faith community, within their, their neighborhood, their communities, which is, I think an amazing step to go. And even thinking about, survivors as some people who can be agents of change to change the conversation about health, about cancer, about, really, the health conversation is sort of all-encompassing. There's a lot of different ways to get into it, but I think to definitely highlight Gospel Run, it's you've created a really cool model that pushes people to set goals, to open that conversation about health, and then even the energy that's there, it makes people want to engage with it more. It's really, really cool.
We meant to do that. And I think an important part of our culture is love.
Yeah, cool.
It's very inclusive. Everyone there is welcome to be there regardless of what you look like, regardless how big or small, regardless of what you believe. And that embrace is felt.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it plays into, even though we're running a little bit out of time, to health equity, to changing sort of like the dynamic of, what health looks like across the city of Chicago.
Absolutely.
To then use avenues like the Gospel Run, like, resources at the Cancer Center and partner together, these last few years to help change that conversation and change, what your community looks like when it comes to health, both in, how active you are, but also how people talk about health, and all those, the many different, again, social determinants of health, which we've talked about before, that go into it. So again, I want to play the video one more time before we go, because it is so much fun to see.
I love watching it every time.
And I want to thank you for joining us today, Nyasha. The time flew by. I feel like we could have this conversation for hours, and the impact of, Gospel Run and even just a healthy lifestyle, health promotion. If you have any questions for the Cancer Center, you can visit us at our website. I'll pull that up right now. What you see on the screen, you can call us at 312-996-8503 or visit us at cancer.uiillinois.edu. If you have any questions, all of our shows are up on the website or tagged through our YouTube and Facebook pages, Twitter. And so again, thank you, Nyasha. We'll play that video one more time before we go. This has been Community Conversations. I am Chris Gay. Thank you.
Come on, say, turn it around, open the windows of heaven, pour out a blessing, overflow, turn it around, open the windows of heaven, pour out a blessing, we can come let it rain.
The Gospel Run encourages people who have never run before to come out for the first time and compete and run and see what they can do. Yes, we want people to be fit, we want to have fun and fellowship.
Ultimate goal is to stay healthy and stay together as a family. So those two things, it was great.
Dealing with diseases like diabetes, stroke, high blood pressure, heart attacks. We have to do better. We have to make fitness a very important part of our community.
From the Gospel Run 5K, there is nothing like it.
I'm ready for change, Lord.
So the mission is be inspired. Whatever motivates you, whatever gets you off the couch, use that to get into health and fitness, to change your life, to change your family.